So Josh, I was going to do a big introduction for you with like, all of your accolades and merits and things like that, but I decided to wait and start off small.
Okay.
And ask you how long you've been a personal trainer.
I've been a personal trainer since 2004. So about 16 years. Yeah, and so I've been coaching at least that long. I coached door-to-door sales for 5 years before that. I coached some random personal growth program. Like I've coached a lot. So I've probably coached for like 20 years. And the weirdest thing, like, it's funny, I used to have a talk that I did about this, but like a lot of things I learned coaching people to do like 80 hours a week of door-to-door sales are like really similar to coaching weight loss. like same emotional.
What did you sell door to door? What were you selling?
So a bunch of things. The biggest thing was there was a company called Southwestern, and Southwestern sells like teacher's manuals for parents. And so we would do an East Coast, West Coast swap. So like I worked with the UCLA kids and then the University of Washington kids, and we'd go to the East Coast and be on like, I did like Norristown, Pennsylvania, and White Plains, New York, and Cumberland, Rhode Island, were my 3 summers. And so we drop into this town and like talk to every parent in the entire town. And that would be the summer. And be like, hey, do you want to buy some teachers manuals for parents? But I also sold, kind of like door-to-door Groupon for hair salons. I did that for a while. And before that, where I started off was I sold singing nightlight bears in the hood. I mean, like I sold in Compton. I sold in the worst parts of Long Beach. I sold in Pacoima. For people that know the Valley, they know Pacoima is not cool.
Wait, what were you selling again?
Oh, singing nightlight bears. So it was a bear that like you squeezed it and it would light up and sing a song. And he'd be like, hey, what's up, man? I'm in the area selling the singing nightlight bears. Normally Kmart, they're like $25. Today it's $5. People would be like, what? They'd put it in their hands and be like, $5. And they'd be like, what? And he'd be like, normally at Kmart, $25. Right now, just $5. That was the whole pitch. Yeah.
So that was the beginning, and then you kind of moved through the ranks of door-to-door sales and coaching. And then, How long have you been doing online sales? And did that start? So, maybe we should also talk about how you got into nutrition coaching and all that. But when did the online coaching piece start for you?
So, I started selling ebooks in like 2007. And so I think I did my first online coaching group in like 2008 or 2009. It was the Josh Hillis Platinum Coaching Club.
Sweet.
I know, right? That was not my branding. I actually paid an enormous amount of money for someone to develop that for me. And man, was that not, which is funny. I paid for some mentorship on how to sell my first ebook. Best thing I ever did. Made so much money. It was so stupid in the early days of internet. Was so good. The branding was so on point. This was kind of the opposite. It didn't do super well in terms of sales, but clients got pretty good results. And so that was like a group. I had like a coaching platform, and I gave people like an ebook with like a workout program. It's like some stuff to learn every month. And the clients actually did really well, which is hilarious given how little I had any idea what I was doing. But it sold so poorly that I didn't do online again until, probably 6 years ago. Oh, no. 70. Okay. So, okay, check this out. So I went to, I quit my job here in Denver and I moved to Santa Clarita to do an internship at Results Fitness. And so like, I'm doing an internship, making no money. I'm like, and I had some money saved up, and then some things went wrong and cleaned me out completely. And I was like, what do I do? I started doing online and phone coaching just so I could survive. And that actually did pretty well. So that worked out. The phone coaching did better than the online. And then I started doing online again with Habitry. And then I started doing it again with One by One Nutrition. And I think by the time I got to One by One Nutrition, we actually sorted out like how to do it well. Up to that point, phone coaching had always done better than straight online.
And what do you mean by phone coaching? What does that even mean? I like, how does that work? What were you coaching?
So all of it, but okay. So people only hire me if they're looking to lose weight, and they're looking for, like, at the time I called it like habits-based nutrition coaching, right?
Okay, so you kind of like went from just being like a fitness trainer, and then you like use like your nutrition work to kind of do your online stuff. Like you use that platform. Okay.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, there was always workouts in there, you know. I mean, and like for a while I like only did kettlebell instructors, and I did like their workouts and I did their food, but no one came to me unless they wanted food also, because that was my that's always been what's been most unique about me, right? Like,
so you really developed your niche around eating behaviors, habit forming, weight loss.
Yeah. And so like the very first like marketing mentor that I had was like, you need a hook, what do you do? And at the time I was like, you know what, like all my clients are women 30 to 40 who are looking to lose like 5 to 15 pounds. And like the gym that I was at, like that was the clientele. Like no one was looking to lose 60 pounds. No one was looking, you know, and so like, that's what I did. And like, no one cared about getting stronger. No one cared about any of, you know? And so my first ebook was The Stubborn 7 Pounds. And I really had, at the time, I had this niche of like people that were like already pretty fit and wanted to lose like another 5, 10, 15 pounds. Right. And that ended up transitioning into more and more of like, oh, like, okay, so this works really well for that clientele, like what I was doing, but it didn't work for anyone else. So I started expanding, and that's where I got more into like, what does it look like to help people with emotional eating? What does it look like to help people with the diets don't work for? And what does it help, you know? But we're talking like, that means that I started with nutrition being my jam in like 2007.
Wow, and so you've been doing this a while.
Yeah, and the thing about that was also that I kind of like built myself in the kettlebell community at the time, and which was really tight, and so it was really easy to. They all had this like massive disdain for like weight loss and nutrition as things that like it was like looked down upon to even like coach that, but there were still people in that community that wanted that. So I got a lot of traction with that real early, and that's how I got known for like, oh, Josh is the food journal guy, and that's
right on. Okay, so let's shift gears for 1 second. This is so interesting. See, I'm learning stuff about you that I didn't know. Talk to me about how One by One got started, your involvement with that, your first book. Just because I want people to know kind of like how long and how you've been like using the stuff that we're going to talk about today with motivation for a long time. Like you have really dived into this. You've really studied it. Like it is a part of everything you do.
Yeah. So, man, okay. So the first book came out of, Dan John was coming through town, and he's like, hey, we should meet up. I want to like, let's talk. And we hung out for a while, and he's like, hey, I've got this new system that I'm working on. At the time, he was doing a workshop called Easy Strength, and it was before the book. So like, if anyone, like that was a long time ago. And he's like, this is kind of random. Can I run your career through my system? Okay. So we sat on my couch and he asked me a bunch of questions. And like, ironically, they're like very similar to the questions that he asks, like when he was doing like athlete consulting. And then he's like, can you give me a half sheet of paper? And I gave him a half sheet of paper and he wrote for like a minute and he's like, this is your career. And it was like, I don't even remember what it was at the time, but it was some version of like, what he called like park bench workouts instead of bus bench workouts, and like habit-based food coaching, and this whole idea of like the workouts are like way secondary, and like what I really do is I coach people on habits. And that became an ebook called System 6 that no one bought except for Dan. And he loved it. He totally loved it. He was like, this should be a print book. He was like, is it okay if I talk to my editor about this? Yeah. And like a year later, he called me up and was like, hey, you should meet with Larry, which is my editor and my publisher. And so that's where Fat Loss Happens on Monday came from. It of that that he was like, System 6 is great. You just need to throw out 2/3 of it. And so he helped me like really cut it down. And he was like, this third needs to be the whole book and the rest is garbage. And he was right. And that's where that came from. So again, mentorship.
Can we all like, can Dan John just, I mean, if he like had like a one-time fee to sit down and do that with coaches, he'd be loaded. I mean,
yeah,
we all probably call him.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, which is interesting because what he did both times was cut out a lot of noise. You know, the first time he talked to me for like an hour and then he wrote down like 3 things on like a half sheet of paper, right? And then the second time it was like, all right, that's what you tried to do with those 3 things, but.
So getting really, really specific on like
what I do. Thing. Yeah. Like, and it really was like, here's the thing that I do that makes a difference. And here's the thing that I do that's unique. And like, stop trying to do all the other stuff, you know, and like really getting clear about the other stuff is actually distracting from, it really was noise, you know, and at every stage for marketing, when I got sharper about the thing that I do that's different from what everyone else does, it set me up. You know, even when I was writing this, and this is super random, when I was writing The Stubborn 7 Pounds, I actually dished off all my clients that were dudes. I dished off all of my clients that had strength goals. I like got rid of everyone that was like exactly who that client was, and actually started like recruiting in the gym. I was like, hey, here's what I do. Here's my specialty. And next thing I know, I had a waiting list, right?
Wow.
People were like, that's me. You know, and people were like, hey, I heard from my friend that you do this, and that's me. And that was cool. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a really hard concept for a lot of trainers to get behind because they don't want to limit themselves to feel like they won't get clients, but actually limiting yourself makes you so specialized that the people who need you find you and want to work with you.
And the thing is, so for a while, I really did lock it down, and that's all I did. Like for a solid year, I only did one thing. For the rest of my career, I've been really sharp about what I do, and I still get everyone. Like the funny thing is, like I'll get people that don't fall into that, but like knew me from my specialty still, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You're always going to get people who aren't your specialty. You're always going to attract people who aren't your avatar. You're like,
yeah,
it's just a way to focus your marketing and like what you offer. Yes, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say that at every point, I've picked a real client and I speak to them. I'm just like, and
you always imagine that person. That's who you're writing to or recording to or whatever. Mm-hmm.
And it keeps it real. It keeps it way out of the theoretical. Like that way I'm always solving real problems, and I'm like using their words, and I reach way more people.
Amazing. Really good information. Okay, so Dan John came in, cleared your slate, got you focused, helped you publish a book, and then one by one. How did that happen?
Yeah. So Stephen Ledbetter, for those that knew Habitry back in the day, Stephen Ledbetter was really early in habit-based coaching in the fitness world. He like in a lot of ways invented a lot of what most of us were doing. We're doing things like it. And he like brought together his community by creating the seminars called the Motivate seminars. And they were unconferences where people would get together and like self-generate a workshop. I mean, a workshop. Like if people don't know what an unconference is, it's you get a bunch of people in a room as a group, you determine what to talk about, and then you talk about that. It's amazing. It's also exhausting. And so it's exhausting because everyone is generating it, right? Like normally you get to be passive sometimes, but like and so he wanted to do this 2-day one, but he's like, there's no way we can do 2 days of everyone in it generating it. So we want to break it up with having some speakers. And so we did a 2-day Motivate seminar, and the speakers were me, Georgie Fear, oh, this is terrible. Me, Georgie Fear, Steve-O, and then oh God, I'm blanking on my friend, the golf fitness dude. This is killing me. Anyway, golf fitness. This is terrible. Sorry, not golf fitness. Now I'm blanking on everything because I'm like, he's gonna hear it and kill me. Disc golf.
He might not hear it.
Disc golf fitness. But so anyway, there were these 4 speakers, and Georgie and I, our talks were so much alike that people came up to us and started asking us how long we've been working together and if we were doing mentorships. And so Georgie, Roland, her husband, and I were all talking, and we were like, what if we actually just did a trainer mentorship? Like, what if we just like invented that right now and did it together? Like, would that be cool? And so we did. And that was the Complete Coaching Mentorship. And we coached, I think, 40 trainers for a year. And it was amazing. We had very, that's the thing that's so weird. Like both of our books came out a month apart. We both had really similar styles. And when we went to this mentorship, we were basically both doing motivational interviewing and self-determination theory. And we coached like a perfect mentorship together. And we ended up doing some workshops with Strength Matters, and she used to coach that workshop, and I used to coach that workshop individually also. And after a year, that turned into one-by-one nutrition, which was habit coaching based mostly on Georgie's book, actually. I contributed a little bit in terms of some of the emotional eating stuff, and especially like a whole section on alcohol and and all the workout stuff. But yeah, so we did this whole we coached this program for a few years based on mostly hunger and fullness cues, and the whole time I had phone clients, and Georgie had phone clients, and we had three great coaches, Sarah, Kara, and Mary Claire, who were all doing phone coaching. So got very, very, very into the phone coaching. Did some email coaching also. It really didn't work as well. The group worked really well. The phone coaching worked really well. Email, which should have been right in the middle, never worked at all.
Interesting. Okay, so you did one by one for a while. I'm just trying to get your timeline here.
Yeah.
And then you eventually left one by one, and then GMB came in and swooped you up.
Within minutes.
We were right there. And that's how I've gotten to know you, because you have written and produced our eating skills program.
Yeah.
And you and I have gotten to work closely together because I am one of the trainers who's being certified as an eating skills coach, that you've taken me through the certification process. And part of what's been so mind-blowing about this whole process and the certification, and while we're focusing on eating skills and food with motivational interviewing, it was something that once you had me read the book Motivational Interviewing for nutrition and fitness coaches, I was like, wait, how did I not read this over a decade ago when I started coaching? Because it's everything. Yeah. It's like everything that trainers need in terms of working with clients and how to figure out how to keep them motivated and excited about continuing to do the work. I feel like as a trainer, I was always like, okay, this is what you're saying your goal is, and I'm giving you this plan, but it's not working, or you'll follow it for a while, and then like I can tell you're just kind of phoning it in. Like, you're coming into the session, but like, so this book blew me away. Going through the certification process with you has been really like transformative for working with in any kind of coaching capacity. It doesn't matter if it's eating skills, nutrition, fitness, whatever. And I get a lot of times from people that, especially with online coaching, especially when they're new to online coaching, how do I keep somebody motivated who's not coming in to see me?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what motivational interviewing is? And we can put the book in the notes for this in the YouTube description, but can you talk a little bit about what it is?
Yeah. So motivational interviewing is a framework for coaching that is just really, really, really popular in a lot of different domains. It's used. It's something that like most therapists are taught, but it's also designed to be taught to like physical therapists to increase adherence for corrective exercise. It's taught to like nurses and doctors to have people actually like do the things that they're saying.
Right.
And unfortunately it has less traction in fitness, but obviously like the book, Motivational Interviewing, Nutrition and Fitness, it's the same thing. It's a framework for having people do the things, right? That's the way I would pitch it to trainers. It's the way to get your clients to do the things. What it really is how to create the conditions for the clients to find their own motivation and do it if they want to.
Okay, hang on. Let's slow that down. So say that again.
So the game, so we have to get clear that the game we're playing is creating conditions for clients to motivate themselves.
Okay, so that's really different, because a lot of trainers think that it's on them to keep their clients motivated.
No.
And that's not true.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, if you're standing there and you're super hyped about doing things, it's always easier to do things when someone's standing next to you that's hyped about it, right? I mean, that's,
Right.
But on a long enough timeline, what we want is we want our clients to actually like get in touch with what matters to them about this, right? And the thing that's really interesting is if you have like a really autonomy supportive coaching environment, clients will figure that out on their own over 2 or 3 years. You'll get the client that like never worked out before, and like 2 or 3 years later, it's like an expression of who they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool, right? That means that you're like not an idiot, and like you provided like a safe and welcoming and inclusive environment where clients could actually figure that out on their own. But the benefit is, like, what if we did that on purpose and we accelerated that process where people could sort that out in like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months instead of 3 years, right? What if we deliberately had conversations where clients could figure out their own motivation? Because most trainers don't need someone to be standing next to them.
Okay, so this is what I was just going to say, that we don't really understand this process because it's not something that we've really ever had to think about.
Yeah.
Right. Like for ourselves, we've never had to like consider why we're motivated to continue training, why we're motivated to eat well, why we're motivated to like show up and do the workouts, even when like, you know, maybe I don't really want to today, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like, but that's not true for our clients.
That's not true for our clients. And it's one of those things where I always like to remind trainers that like we've connected the dots on this one thing, and typically our clients have connected these dots on like all the other things, right? Like one-on-one clients are typically like pretty well off financially, right? So like the way they relate to their investments or like the way that we relate to our fitness, you know, like they handle their finances whether they feel like it or not, you know, and trainers are usually typically like terrible about that kind of thing.
Right. Like we don't want to talk about money ever.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's one of those things where like, it's a natural process. Like the things we're typically good at and the things that we typically do all the time, at some point we figured out like even if it's unconscious, on some level we've connected like, okay, these are like some character strengths I want to embody. This is like the kind of person I want to be about this. There's this like benefit that I get to it for my life that I get if I do it when I feel like it. And there's a benefit that I get if I do it when I don't feel like it. We've already connected all of those dots. And so we want to have structured conversations where clients connect those dots for themselves.
And that's so what's the difference between, this is huge for me. So sometimes clients, it feels like, come to us asking us to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
But why does that not work?
It works until it doesn't, right? It works for a little while because everything works when it's novel. But at a certain point, people don't want to feel controlled, right? And that's the big thing. Like, does this motivation to do this thing feel like it's coming from outside of me, or does it feel like it's coming from inside of me? And like, if it's coming from the outside, whether it's your trainer telling you what to do, or your boss telling you what to do, or your spouse telling you what to do, like no one really enjoys being told what to do for any length of time. But it's okay if we've connected it to other things that matter to us, right? So we have to get to a point where we know like the kind of person that I want to be, like the character strengths that I want to embody around like food might be, or fitness or whatever, it might be like conscientiousness and flexibility and you know, maybe freedom or connectedness or whatever. But you get some sense of, and like, okay, and if I was embodying that, then most of the time I would go and do my workouts. But like, because I'm being conscientious. But also I've got this flexibility where like, if I start my workout and I'm 15 minutes in and I feel like I'm like beat, like I'm actually going to call it. Because like I actually have that flexibility and I've got like that amount of like checking in with myself, and they can start to make these decisions based on their values. If they know what their values are, if they've started to like almost like script that out a little bit, and they've had a lot of conversations with their coach about what it would look like to make decisions based on those values. And like in that example, it really would be like the value-based thing really would be like, oh, you know what? Like, I don't feel like it today. I'm going to go to the gym and see and start and see how I feel. And then the flexibility really is like, oh, you know what? After my warm-up, I felt good. I'm going to keep doing it. Or, you know what? After I warmed up, I felt like I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to call it, you know? And so like all those things are showing up. And that's a big, complex, messy discussion. But if you have it often enough, people get really good at it and they internalize it. And then they're never the same about fitness again. It becomes an expression of who they are.
Okay, so that sounds really powerful. And like I said, I wish I would have had this stuff a long time ago. But can you talk a little bit about how, I mean, obviously we want people to read this book because the book gives you like all the information, really.
Yeah.
But can we talk a little bit about how, like, on a small scale, coaches could start using this kind of approach with clients?
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. So there's two things. There's like the tools and like the overall perspective. And the way I was originally taught it, which isn't exactly motivational interviewing, but it leads into it. So motivational interviewing says there's three kinds of ways that you can talk to someone. You can be really directive. You can tell them what to do. You can guide, where you like co-create the plan with them, with like asking questions, giving options and things like that. Or you can follow. And follow would be like they create the plan and you kind of like consult a little bit. And the way I was originally taught it, like motivational interviewing typically teaches it like you flow between those things, like whatever shows up at a time. The way I was originally taught it was to think about it like starting off with directing. And like I actually coached a program where it was like a month of directing, a month of guiding, and a month of following. And we'd literally tell people like, now it's time for us to like co-create this. And then the next month we'd be like, now it's time for you to tell me. And I still do that sometimes. But it's this idea of like you should know what you're doing and when you're doing and why. And you should know that like if a client is right in front of you, it's appropriate to direct. Like if we're in the gym together, they expect you to direct. It makes sense to direct. You're there to direct, right? If someone's going to do stuff on their own, it's way less effective to direct, right?
So online coaching might not be directive.
Yes, exactly. Online coaching, you want to co-create it with them because it gives them a level of investment that's really different than if they were just told what to do. And so there's a lot of like open-ended questions, like we ask them things and listen. We listen a lot and have them talk to us and figure it out themselves in conversation with us. And then we're also like providing structure where, we do habits or skills. And so I might give them an example of a certain number of skills to work with, and they choose which ones they think are going to make the biggest difference. And I'm both allowing them to co-create the program by choosing, and I'm trusting that they know their life better than I do to choose. And they're super bought in because they chose it.
Okay, Josh, but hang on. You give somebody three options like of what they choose, and you know what the best option is. As a coach, you know what the best option is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter, right? Like that's one thing that I'm learning from motivational interviewing is that like what I know and what I believe for my clients actually doesn't matter if they can't see that for themselves.
Yeah. There's two ways to look at that. One way to look at that is, you know what, I know the right one to choose, but even if I tell them, they're less likely to do it, and we're better off with them doing the one that they chose, even if it's not ideal. The other way to look at it is, who am I to think that I know, right? Like no matter how many open-ended questions I ask, and no matter how much they tell me about their lives, I still don't know what's going on as well as they do. And if they choose a skill to work on, there's a pretty good chance that it's a better one than what I would have chosen. The caveat is I don't give people options that aren't going to help them.
Right. Okay. That's a very good point. So can we use like a real life example, because just in case like people aren't really understanding how you get three skill options, like, okay, let's take the example of like, I'm just going to make up a scenario. You've created an online program that you're selling, and you're looking for a specific client that you want to work with.
Yeah.
When you meet for that like initial call, how would you work with this? How would you work with motivational interviewing?
Oh, okay. So the initial is going to be a little different. Because a good initial consultation, I'm doing none of the talking, like I want to know what have they done in the past? What parts of that worked? What parts that didn't work? Those are probably the biggest things. And that applies across fitness, that applies across, like, oh, so you did this until you got injured, it really worked until or like, oh, you did this diet and it worked until something stressful happened, then you did this diet, and you worked until, someone got sick, and you did, and then from that, like the assessment is, the consultation is me listening. And then, so basic motivational interviewing is like ask open-ended questions, reflect back what they said, and summarize. So I'm like, oh, okay, so you did this, that. So literally, they'll tell me a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell me a story, yep. And I'll say like, oh, so you did paleo and then it worked until you went to this wedding. Yeah. So like that reflection, I sharpened it all down to like one thing, right? And so I'll do that with every part of their history that they tell me. I'll sharpen it down to like, here's what worked, here's what didn't work. And then I'll summarize, and the summary will be like, okay, so you did all these different diets, and it looked like what worked about them was you were paying some attention to your food, and you like had some kind of balance. Looked like all of them ate a little more vegetables, maybe like a little more protein. Some of them, there were like little differences, but clearly that didn't matter because they all worked even though those differences were there. And they all seemed to break when something stressful happened. Does that sound right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Here's where I think we should go from there. I've had a lot of clients in those situations, and what we typically do is we change gears and we work on things like, and I'll go into like this system and how it works and why it works for people that have had done multiple diets. And then, and so I'll say like, okay, so like clearly you need some flexibility in there. And so we probably want to work on skills. And I typically start people off with either some things like plating balanced meals, or not snacking between meals, or distinguishing hunger from fullness, hunger and fullness from other things, or like eating slowly. Of those four things, which one sounds like it's the biggest issue for you to start with? Like, oh, I don't know, all of them. Oh, that's okay, right? That's okay. Trust me, we'll get to all four. Like, trust me, we'll go through the whole system to get everything you need, but we need a starting place. Like if you look back at last week, where do you feel like you had the biggest issues? Oh, you know what? I definitely like snack every afternoon at 3:00 when I'm tired and bored. Okay, cool. Let's work on some snacking stuff. And like that.
Great. Okay, can we do that same example, but make it a fitness program instead of a nutrition program? Since most of the people who are probably going to watch this are primarily focused on fitness.
Yeah. I should have you do it for fitness. But the same kind of thing. It's like what worked. Oh, you know what? CrossFit worked until I got hurt. Orange Theory worked until my work schedule increased and I couldn't make it to the class times. I was doing yoga for a while, and I really liked it, but I didn't get the result I want. Like all that kind of stuff. Like, okay, cool. So you did all these things, and they all had like kind of, there was some sort of rigidity about it that didn't work at a certain point. Either you had to push too hard and you got hurt, or like class times didn't work. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a plan that's like specific to you and your needs and fit into your schedule. And we're going to go from there. And here's what that normally looks like. I think the first month will look like this. I think the second month will look like this. And the third month will look like this. What do you want to do in terms of, so I never, even in the gym, I never saw a client more than once a week, ever. So I'm always asking questions like, so that means like even in a big box gym, I had like 35 clients. But so then I'm always asking like, okay, so like, do you want to do your other workouts here at this gym? Do you want to do your workouts at home? Do you want to, and they're telling me like, okay, here's the equipment I've got. Here's what I've got. And then I'm like, okay, do you want to work out twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week? And they're like, I don't know, like, is 4 better? I'm like, actually, most of my clients work out 3 times a week and they do fine. Okay, cool. Let's sort out what days and like, what's your schedule like and how much time should we put in? And then at the end of every at the end of every month, and I still do this a lot with all my online clients, we go through their program and we go through like what bumped up and what was hard, and like, oh, like this, like I hate this exercise. Oh, why do you hate it? Because it hurts in my shoulder. Oh, well, like, can you send me a video? Can we coach that? Okay, cool. I hate this one because like it makes me feel self-conscious. And it, like the way my stomach touches my legs when I do this movement, like I hate it. Okay, cool. Let's do something different, And I let them know, like, here's the framework that I have for training. And I use like a block periodization because clients enjoy it. So I'm like, okay, so next month we're going to be in this rep range. So that gives us like a certain like pool of movements we could pull from. But like, if you don't like that, we don't have to do it. We can do this other move instead. Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, okay. And so like of squatting movements, like, oh, I really hate the front rack with a barbell. Can I use kettlebells? Yeah.
Yeah. So most of like for online, when you've done online coaching for fitness stuff, a lot of your actual communication with the client is mostly about how it's going, adjustments you can make, and also just like how to, I mean, this sounds really obvious, like that we all do it, of like supporting our clients, but I really feel like the spin on motivational interviewing is different than most of us use. Because it's actually like letting the client lead versus us leading.
Yeah. So, okay, there's something I want to be really clear with about that, because when I first started teaching like motivational interviewing kind of stuff to trainers, the biggest mistake they would make is they would go from directing to following. Mm-hmm. Right? They would go from like, I'm telling you everything to like, you tell me. And it's too fast, right? Like you have to scaffold. So I don't ask people, first month, I ask a bunch of questions and I write them a program and I say, this is the perfect program for you based on what you told me, right? I give it to them. Right. Mm-hmm. At the end of the first month, I'm like, as we're talking all month long, right? Obviously. But at the end of the first month, as I'm getting ready to do the next program, I'm like, hey, so like, just like we talked about, here's where it's going, but let's dig in on like what changes we want to make. And I give them, like, I expand the number of options they have and the amount that I ask them about, the longer they've been doing it. If someone's, if someone's been with me for 2 years, I can totally follow. Mm-hmm. If I follow the first month, they'll it doesn't work.
But for online clients, it's much more guiding in the beginning than just like, yes, you're going to write a program for them and you're going to give it to them. But in terms of like how you like work with them, because you're not standing right there, you're not telling them what to do every second of everything.
Yeah. So okay. So I get what you're saying. So like, I'll give them a program with 12 workouts, right? And then every week we check in. How did it go? How did it feel? What was it like? What, you didn't have time, on Wednesday. Like next Wednesday, should we deliberately do shorter? Oh, I can do that? Yeah, you can totally do that. Oh yeah. This didn't feel good. This felt great. This felt strong. This felt weak. We totally adjust in conversation, and they very clearly get to play a part in how that goes. But in the beginning, it's a lot more of me educating. Like, oh, so like, if you only have this much time, you can drop a set of everything. Oh, I can do that? Yeah, cool. Because that's still gonna be better than doing, So Is that clear? I like.
Yeah, no, it's because I feel like the biggest question that comes up with online training is like, what do people do when when their clients start dropping off? Like, I have online clients who like, sometimes they check in with me every week when I email them, and sometimes they don't. And then sometimes we get to the end of the month and they're like, oh, the month was a wash. I didn't get to any workouts. And I'm like,
okay.
That's when motivational interviewing becomes really important.
Here's the thing. The people that, and this is just my bias from the people that I know that are killing it with online training. They aren't doing just email. Just email never worked well for me ever. What works really well is like email plus phone, email plus Zoom. Even if that's like like if you email every week, but you Zoom every other week, like something about like what we're doing right now is different from, like people don't drop off of phone coaching and Zoom coaching the way they drop off from email. And it could be that I just don't know how to do it well. But like group coaching where there's one expectation works really well. Like in like a Facebook group or like a forum or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like live in person, in person, like appointment based coaching, whether
Virtual.
that's phone or Zoom, works really well. That thing in the middle where they get individual emails, I've never been able to make work. And I know people that are everyone that I know that's making like a really solid full-time income online training has Zoom meetings or phone meetings with their clients also, even though they call it online coaching.
Right. There's still a real-time component to it.
And that provides a lot of accountability.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's also different. And I would just want to say this for people who are watching, who like, there are trainers I know who are working on creating like a program just to sell, like that they don't have, there is no coaching aspect to it. It's just an online program. And that's totally different. And you don't have any interaction with your clients. Works too. And you have to let go of whatever they do once they purchase it. Like,
yeah.
So,
I've done great with that. I killed it with my first ebook. Not the second one, but that first one.
So I also like to point this out just because I feel like that's also really relevant to trainers, is that the first online thing you did killed it. The second online thing you did didn't fly. And like,
neither did the third or the fourth.
Right. Like,
but the fifth and the sixth. Yeah.
Now we're talking. Right. So like a lot of times trainers will like try to offer one thing online, or they'll, write a program and put it on a platform and then it doesn't sell. And then I feel like there's this like response of like, oh, well, I tried it and it didn't work, so like I'm not going to do it. But within the realm of online and selling things, like you're not going to hit it on the first try. Maybe like you got lucky. I feel like, I'm sure it was really good, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's really hard to hit the nail on the head the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, like, the fact that it worked at all, I credit entirely to having a good marketing coach who just like really sharpened up my offer. And like, ironically, the same thing that Dan did was like, here's all the stuff that you do, and like most of that's generic and no one cares, and you've got this one thing that's like totally sellable. And everything I've done that's worked has been that, combined with paying a lot of attention to what people are responding to, which is another thing that I would say, like, the reason that my blog took off was because I was paying attention to the kinds of posts that were connecting with people and the kinds of posts that weren't. And I think that like the more that I can create products around the kinds of things that I know are connecting, the better. The more that I can write about the things that I know are connecting, the better. I really, really, really think that a lot of people online are just like putting stuff out and not really paying attention. And it's all about analytics. it's all
Right.
it's all iterative. It's all analytics.
Marketing matters.
Yeah.
This is like the conclusion I constantly come back to with trainers is that, like, it's great that you're putting up content. It's great that you're posting to Instagram a couple of times a week, but if it's not relevant to your audience and it's not relevant to what you're trying to do, it's just making content for the sake of content, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but then don't expect that you're going to get a lot of people inquiring about working with you. If you don't invest some time and energy into learning about marketing and figuring out who your ideal client is, it is going to be really hard to sell anything, is the thing I come back to with trainers, which is hard because most trainers don't want to market. They don't like it. It's scary. It's like a new thing that feels like it shouldn't be part of their job. But unfortunately, you've said to me before, you're like, oh, the coaching part, that's like the dessert. Like, you got to do the other work. The hard part is the marketing, and that's the work. Coaching is not the work.
Exactly. One reframe I might put out there for coaches is that no one likes bad marketing, but good marketing is coaching. Right? Like,
education-based marketing.
Yeah.
We're trying to teach.
Yeah, we're trying to teach, and we're also like, so if I think about the things that really matter to me about coaching, it's listening, it's meeting people where they're at, it's speaking the client's language, and it's solving problems. Right? That's also really badass marketing. Mm-hmm. Right? And if you look at it, most trainers don't do that in their marketing. They're not listening, right? They're not meeting people where they're at. They're not speaking the client's language, and they're not solving the problems that the clients feel like they have. They're so often solving the problems that trainers wish that clients thought that they had.
Say that again. The problems that trainers.
So like trainers all have like these things that they wish that clients cared about.
Right. We're like, why do you not care about this? How do you not care about this? This is like super important. Yeah. Big time.
And that's what they market to. And you already know your clients don't care.
Right. And you can't make them care. Like you can't, no matter how much you care, if you care more than them, it's not going to work. Like, you can't force them to care. You can't tell them to care. How do you figure out how to work with that situation? That is motivational interviewing right there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also like you're like asking about the initial consultation, right? Like, if I was going to teach a trainer how to sell a lot, I would have them get Clifford and Curtis's book on motivational interviewing, because like, that's all I do. I listen and I find out what their problems are, and I say, I can help with that. That's it.
Right. Because if somebody's already reaching out to you, like if you're already in an initial consult or like an assessment, and so somebody's in the ready to change stage, they've already reached out to you, and you're listening to them, you're reflecting back what you hear, which makes them feel heard, it makes them feel understood. That you get where they're coming from. You're not telling them what to do necessarily. You're just getting information and then offering solutions to that you can help with.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Done.
And like I mean, this is something that really blew me away when I first started doing this, was the number of clients that told me that I was the first trainer that ever listened to them. And they're like, they asked me a little bit, like, what are your goals? And blah, blah, blah. But like, no one ever really cared about their journey and what it was like for them, Okay,
so this goes back to what we started talking about before I hit record, and they were like, no, let's not talk about it until we hit record.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like, okay, so we both have worked for big box gyms. We both have been independent. We both have been online. We've covered a lot between the two of us, we've covered a lot of ground.
We've covered a lot. We have.
So I really feel like when you work in a box gym, you often get a form that you're supposed to like fill in when you go into like an initial consult or an assessment.
Yeah.
That you don't get a ton of great training around how to use, and it feels awkward to ask these questions and then not know what to say exactly. And like, you're supposed to be asking these questions because it's on the form, but maybe that's not really like getting the info, especially when you're like, oh, what are your fitness goals? And somebody says, I just want to be in shape, or I just want to be healthy. And I feel like we're not given, or those trainers are not given, and maybe all of us aren't given the tools to really figure out how to do an assessment or a consult in a way that we get the information that we need and we make sure that the client feels heard and understood. And that's what I meant when I said earlier, I feel like we're asking the wrong questions. Or we're not asking enough questions in the assessment. And so what are some things that coaches can use when they talk to clients, like in their initial assessment? Like, what are some questions that you would add into that assessment?
So you know, the
or tips on how to direct the conversation once you start asking about goals and history.
The thing that's cool about those forms is you typically get a lot of information about their previous injury history, which is absolutely essential. That's totally necessary. So that's cool. That's actually very cool. What I want to get at is I want to know, kind of like what I was saying before, like, what have they tried in the past? And what worked about that, what didn't work about it. Also, sometimes, what did they like about it? What did they not like about it? And then we want to get some sense of what direction to go. But to be clear, I'm okay with the clients that don't know. You know, like you were saying, people are like, I just want to be healthier. I just want to be more fit. I'll ask a couple questions like, oh, so like, how do you know if you're more fit? Like, what does that look like to you? And I might dig in on that a little bit, but I'm okay with the fact that like, at least a third of the people have no idea. They have no idea, where they don't have like, I'm here and my goal is there. All they have is, I'm here and I don't want this anymore. That's fine. Because the reality is, if they tell me their goals, I take that with a grain of salt anyway. Because I mean, most of the time the goals they're telling me are like whatever they've been like societally conditioned to say are their fitness goals, right? Mm-hmm. So so they say whatever they say, and then I'm going to dig in on their values over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, as long as I work with them.
Okay, talk about that.
Okay.
Talk about how do you dig in about values?
Okay, give me 10 seconds.
Why is that important?
Okay, let me grab some water. I'll be right back in like 10 seconds.
Okay, great. So I'm going to talk for a second while Josh is gone about the book, Motivational Interviewing for Fitness and Nutrition. You can get it online, pretty much any place you can buy books, and it's a very easy read, and it really like dives into a lot of the stuff that we're talking about in terms of how to actually have these conversations with people, and the script like that you want to more or less use, not like a script, but like how to bounce back and forth with a client in this conversation. I was just explaining more about the book while you were getting more water.
Awesome. Neither
of us are affiliated with this book.
That's what I was gonna say.
Any money by
that's what I was gonna say. In the beginning, I was like, are they gonna think I wrote the book or something? Or like, no. Motivational interviewing is it's a thing. It's a whole thing that we have nothing to do with. But we've learned it.
Right, and this book has just happened to be written for us as trainers. Like, it's written with us in mind, and that's the situations that we're going to be in. Yeah. Okay, so just values. Talk about values and how to talk to your clients about them, and how, like, why it's important to figure out what your clients' values are and how to connect that to what you're working on.
So by values, what I mean character strengths. I mean like the kind of person that they want to be, right? Which is important to note, because like if you say values to clients, they'll give you their goals, right? The reason we want to get at that like internal thing is there's a continuum of motivation, right? And the more external your motivation is, the more fragile it is. So the most fragile kind of motivation is reward and punishment. The next most fragile is contingent self-esteem. So reward and punishment would be like, oh, I was bad, I ate the thing, I'm gonna go run 3 miles, or oh, I'm gonna not allow myself to have this thing if I do this, or I'm gonna reward myself with buying this pair of pants if I stick to this diet, right? Reward and punishment. Contingent self-esteem would be like, I feel good about myself when I eat this way, or I feel guilty if I don't, right? You're trying to prop up your self-esteem with certain actions. On the side that's a little more self-determined, a little more intrinsic, and a lot more robust is personally identified goals. This is a little sticky because 90% of the goals your clients give you aren't personally identified. They're actually like given to them by their parents or society or the magazine. So that's hard to get at. And then the most robust would be like the kind of person that you want to be. And it, like an example, I have a lot of clients that are parents. They want to be a good parent. They want to be a good parent when it's easy to be a good parent. They want to be a good parent when it's hard to be a good parent. They want to be a good parent on no sleep. They want to be a good parent. You know, like who they want to be doesn't change based on how they feel on a given day. But if they were giving themselves a treat for being a good parent, some days that's just not enough. Right. Like, you know, like, and so the thing about like the reward and punishment is it just doesn't last very long. And when you're stressed out, you're tired, it's not going to be enough. The guilt and contingent self-esteem, at some point, it just becomes so grating. Like we start to hate it. Right. But this expression of who we are is so robust. Right. It's robust. It's flexible. It's the kind of thing where if someone wants to eat better, if they don't get to like who they want to be about it, it's always going to break when things get hard. And so that's why we want to get at clients' values, because it's the most robust form of motivation. It doesn't change when you're stressed out.
Right. And it doesn't do the whole like guilt shame cycle that a lot of our clients experience all the time. So when you think about typical diet and fitness culture, there's a lot built up around like punishment and reward and shame and self-esteem. And how many of our clients that, you know, eventually make it to us are just like so burnt out from all of it. Like they've just been doing this, you know, like signing up for this, doing this class, doing this challenge, doing this diet, and like it's like a cycle that they are just continuing on. So this is a way of kind of breaking that cycle.
Yeah. It's like most of the goals. Oh man, it's so funny because like most of the goals that people actually come to us with are like, oh, I want to look better for this event. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like looking better is like a reward, and like if you don't do it, you're like being punished, or like your self-esteem is contingent upon you know, like it's so it is so shame-based, and it is so like it's actually like bad for our well-being. Mm-hmm. Right, besides being fragile. And it so we want to start having conversations with people about who they want to be, about like what matters to them about this, about like if they were setting, you know, like again for like clients that are parents, I'm like, what kind of example do you want to set for your kids? You know, like what values do you want them to learn about food? Or like what values would your grandma teach you about food? You know, like if we can get some perspective taking, we can figure out what matters to them. And I usually start people off with like a values list. And you can Google values list. I think Brene Brown's got a good values list that you might be able to find online. And have people just like circle 3 is the easy place to start. Don't think that that'll be like the end all be all. Like you want to start with that, and then you want to start looking at like, how does this relate to the approaches I'm taking with my food and with my fitness? Does my workout program reflect this? Does my eating reflect this? And if you have that conversation often enough, then it actually becomes the new context for looking at it, and it's a more robust form of motivation, and it's also a lot healthier. It's better for our well-being. It's actually like good for our sense of self to take actions in line with the kind of person that we want to be. Like that's self-reinforcing. It's good for our well-being all by itself. So,
and that's like the golden ticket right there, right? Like that, if we can do that as coaches, if we can give that to our clients, we can help them in that way that's long-term and sustaining, that's not dependent on us necessarily being right there with them. But that's like, what more can you want as a coach? Like, that's like everything.
It's the difference we actually want to make.
Right. It's the difference we talk about wanting to make all the time. That is really hard for us to figure out how to do, because we haven't been given these kind of tools. We haven't been given these kind of tools like in traditional, certification courses, and at, most of us start off at some sort of gym, box gym or chain gym, some kind of, it's definitely not given to us there. So yeah, and especially if you're moving into online training and wondering how to work with clients in this capacity where you're not going to be standing over them, like this is even more important to learn.
Yeah, exactly. If your clients are doing most or all of their workouts on their own, you have to get at this, right? And the where most trainers are at, if they haven't had these conversations before, is that you're successful with clients that have already sorted this out on their own, and you're unsuccessful with clients that haven't.
Right.
And so this opens up the ability to make a difference for a much wider pool of clients.
And both of those two clients could still fall within your avatar, right? Like,
oh yeah,
those two people, one section of them just has more dots connected than the other in terms of how they connect their fitness to their values.
Yeah.
Because every time I talk to trainers and I'm helping them figure out their ideal client, they're like somebody who does what I'm telling them to do, like who follows the instructions. And it's like, well, that's a crapshoot on whether or not you're going to get that person necessarily, because that doesn't have anything to do with them actually like listening necessarily to what you're saying. It's that they've already connected that it's a value to them and what they're investing in and what they're coming to you for. That's not just like some clients decide they want to listen to you and some don't.
I have seen trainers that really aggressively sort for that. The trainers that are like mostly repulsive to anyone that isn't super fit actually manage to select for only people that are already all the way down the line, right? And those are the trainers that I tend to they're only capable of making a difference for a very narrow part of people, but
and I would venture to say that maybe their marketing is kind of the type that we don't like. Like, that's the stuff that we have, like, that leaves a bad taste in our mouth, that makes us be like, I don't want to do marketing.
Yeah,
exactly. It's not an education-based system.
Yeah.
Sweet. This has been super awesome, Josh. I'm really excited for other trainers to know more about motivational interviewing and maybe get the book and have a read. For people who want to know more about you, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about your new book that just came out?
Yeah. So my name is Josh Hillis, and I've got a book called, so it's called Lean and Strong, Eating Skills, Psychology, and Workouts. And it really is like trying to, what I was really up to is I was like, I want to smash the entire diet industry and break down like everything of like, here's why diets don't work. Here's why eating skills do. Here are the kinds of skills and guidelines that make a difference. and here's how to sort for which ones to use. Here are the meta skills like flexibility and planning. And then let's get into the stuff like perfectionism versus pursuit of excellence. And then let's get into the deeper like motivation psychology stuff, like values and autonomy and relatedness and competence.
Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Also, if you're looking for any information, free articles on eating skills and kind of habit-based eating, GMB has a number that Josh has written that you can check out on the GMB website that are super helpful. Because one thing, I've done other nutrition certification, and I was like, eating skills, what is this all about? And something that Josh told me when we first talked, like a while ago, is that most people know what they should eat and what they shouldn't eat, but they're not doing it. So this is the stuff that actually can make the difference, which I was like, oh.
That should be the tagline on my website. Like, you explained it way clearer than I did. Yeah, so that's the other thing. Like the GMB Eating Skills program, if you want to be taken through all of this and you like video and you want some coaching around it and all of that, it is that would be another place to get at me.
Yeah, and it's
and Rose.
I'm on there too, and it's a great program. Like it's changing people's lives and their relationship to eating. So definitely worth checking out. I'll put all of this info in the YouTube notes so that you all can find Josh and all of the various places that he's doing stuff. And please leave comments if you have questions. And Josh, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rose. This is great.